The International Monetary Fund prepares financial revolution, say goodbye to the US dollar. This is authored by Brandon Smith via the Burning Platform blog. Global reserve currency status allows for amazing latitude in terms of monetary policy. The Treasury Department understands that there is a constant demand for dollars overseas as a means to more easily import and export goods. The petrodollar monopoly made the US dollar essential for trading oil globally for decades. And this means that the Central Bank of the United States has been able to create fiat currency from thin air to a far higher degree than any other central bank on the planet, while avoiding the immediate effects of hyperinflation. Much of that cash, as well as dollar-denominated debt, ends up in the coffers of foreign central banks, international banks, and investment firms. Sometimes it's held as a hedge or bought and sold to adjust the exchange rates of local currencies. As much as 60% of all U.S. currency and 25% of U.S. government debt is owned outside the United States. Global reserve currency status is what allowed the U.S. government and the Fed to create tens of trillions of dollars in new currency after the 2008 credit crash, all while keeping inflation more or less under control. The problem is that this system of stowing dollars overseas only lasts so long, and eventually the effects of overprinting come home to roost. The Bretton Woods Agreement of 1944 established the framework for the rise of the US dollar. While the benefits are obvious, especially for the US, there are numerous costs involved. Think of world reserve status as a deal with the devil, quote unquote. You get the fame, you get the fortune, you get trophy dates and a sweet car for a while, and then one day the devil comes to collect, and when he does, he's going to take everything, including your soul. Unfortunately, I suspect collection time is coming soon for the United States, the writer says. It may take the form of a brand new Bretton Woods-like system that removes the dollar as global reserve currency and replaces it with a new digital basket system. Something like the International Monetary Fund, the IMF's special drawing rights SDR currency. Global banks are essentially admitting they plan for a complete overhaul of the dollar-based financial world and the creation of a central bank digital currency, CBDC, focused system built on unified ledgers. There have been 3 recent developments, all announced in succession, that suggest the dollar's replacement is imminent. And by imminent, I mean before this decade is over. The IMF's XC framework, a centralized policy for CBDCs. The IMF's XC platform was released as a theoretical model in November 2022 that matches closely with their long-discussed concept of global SDR, only in this case it would tie together all CBDCs under one umbrella along with current legacy currencies, dollars and euros and so on. XC is marketed as a policy structure to make cross-border payments in CBDCs easier for governments and central banks. Of course, it places the IMF as the middleman controlling the flow of digital transactions. The IMF suggests that XC platform would make the transition from legacy currencies to CBDCs easier for the various nations involved. As the IMF noted in a discussion on centralized ledgers in 2023, we could end up in a world where we have connected entities to some degree, but some entities in some countries that are excluded, and as a global and multilateral institution, we're sort of aiming to, provide a basic connectivity, a basic set of rules and governance that is truly multilateral and inclusive. So I think that is the ambition, is to aim for innovation that is compatible with policy goals and that is inclusive relative to the brand membership, the board membership of, say, the IMF. To translate, decentralized systems are bad. Inclusivity, collectivism is good. And the IMF wants to work in tandem with other globalist institutions to be the facilitators or controllers of that economic collectivism. Bank for International Settlements, BIS Universal Ledger. Not more than a day after the IMF announced their XC platform goals, the BIS announced their plans for a single record for all CBDCs called the BIS Universal Ledger. The BIS specifically notes that the project is meant to inspire trust in central bank digital currencies while overcoming the fragmentation of current tokenization efforts. And while the IMF is focused on controlling international policy, the BIS is pursuing the technical aspects for the globalization of CBDCs. Both make it clear in their white papers that a cashless society is in fact the end game and that digital transactions must be monitored by a centralized entity in order to keep money secure. There are three major assertions made by BIS in their program. First, the digitalization of money is unavoidable. Cash is going to disappear, primarily because it makes moving money easier. Second, our existing decentralized payment methods are unacceptable because they are risky. Only central banks are qualified and trustworthy enough to mediate the exchange of money. And third, the use of unified ledgers is largely designed to track and trace and even investigate all transactions for the public good, of course. The swift cross-border protection, another way to control entire nations. As we've seen with the attempt to use SWIFT payment networks as a bludgeon against Russia, there's an obvious motive for globalists to control a high-speed, large-scale transaction hub. Again, this is all about centralization, and whoever controls the hub has the means to control trade up to a point. Locking Russia out of SWIFT did not work, though, did it? The Russian economy suffered minimal damage exactly because there are other methods for transferring money between nations to keep the flow of trade running. However, under the CBDC-based global monetary umbrella, it would be impossible for any country to work outside the boundaries. It's not only about the ease of shifting a nation out of the network, it's also about having the power to immediately block the transfer of funds on the receiving end of the exchange, just like in the example above. Any funds from any source could be intercepted before reaching their recipient. Can you imagine? CBDCs automatically end the dollar global reserve currency status. So what do all these globalist projects with CBDCs have to do with the dollar? The bottom line is this: a unified CBDC system excludes the need or use case for a global reserve currency entirely. The dollar's advantages disappear in this scenario. All the world's currencies, from dollars to Malaysian ringgit, would become nothing more than line items on a universal ledger. This one reason is absolutely crucial to own physical precious metals. Untrackable non-digital forms of money like gold and silver will be even more highly prized in the near future than they are today. This is on Zero Hedge. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. Kindly support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.